This is your Tarotscope for January 12th through January 18th. I'm going to look at the anchor card, a challenge, and a gift that's available to us this week. I also want to give you a heads up that I published a pretty rich and full article on my Substack for the full moon in Cancer, which is exact on Monday. And that link is at the top of my link in bio if you want to go in there. Okay, so Page of Swords reversed. This is our anchor card for this coming week. And the sense I'm getting is that on the one hand, we're having trouble focusing. We're probably feeling scattered. There's a lot of emotional energy that's high. There's a lot of stuff that's pulling our focus this way and that. On the other hand, we might be lying to ourselves or even to other people or being more avoidant with our communication and sort of coming up with excuses to avoid having a necessary conversation. Or we could just not be communicating how we're really feeling or what we really think. Could look like white lies. It could look like being in denial and not necessarily being upfront about what it is that we want. And that could come because this full moon is really bringing deep focus to our unmet needs in relationships and just in general. It can bring up a sense of insecurity. We have Chiron at the apex of a T-square between the luminaries, which means Chiron's right here, and then we have the sun and moon that are basically forming 90-degree angles to Chiron, and they're opposite one another. So it's like this triangle of tension. And with Chiron up there at the focal point of that T-square, it's bringing up some wounding, core wounding. And some of that could have to do with our competence, how we see ourselves, how we express ourselves. It could bring up communication challenges and fears around how we're received by other people or perceived by other people. And that could lead to us people pleasing or trying to fit in at the expense of honesty and authenticity. The Page of Swords reverse sometimes comes up as this like someone who's trying to wrangle their mind and having a lot of trouble with it, and someone who gets easily led down kind of different rabbit holes and has trouble, again, staying on task or focusing on what's in front of them. This is a really good week to bring in meditative practices and to do movement practices, if that's an option for you, to kind of expel some of the more intense and punctuated energy that's coming up, especially at the start of the week. We have some challenging astrology that's kicking off this week, but some of the outlets for us for that astrology are movement, our artistic practices, our movement practices like dance and qigong and tai chi and yoga. Like all of that would be great as a way to sort of exhale that energy, and that might help you bring back, restore some of your focus and your ability to like communicate effectively. Sometimes when our body's all haywire or our mind's all haywire, we then mix our words. We don't communicate as transparently and openly and clearly as we want to. Our challenge, this is definitely a challenge, but our core challenge this week is the Six of Swords. The Six of Swords is inviting us to move into a new phase, especially mentally, after a period of conflict or dis-ease or a period of chaos or clutter or whatever. We're needing to kind of turn a new leaf and decide that we're going to move forward and restore our energy and recover by moving into calmer waters. And so whatever gets kicked up early in the week, our challenge could be to bring ourselves back to center, to calm ourselves, to soothe ourselves, and potentially to detach from something that's creating unnecessary stress in our lives, or to, set some boundaries and say, like, I'm not in a place where I can talk about this right now, but let's come back to this at this point. That might be something you have to practice this week, is saying, I'm not collected, I'm not in a good headspace right now, but I really want to sort this out. I really want to come back to this and I want to have an open conversation with you, but I know I'm not in a position to do that at this moment. So can we put a date and a time on the calendar to have a more present conversation where we can both be open? That's like an approach that you might have to practice this week, even if it's just with yourself. Let's say, for instance, like you're mad at yourself or you're feeling insecure or something's coming up and you're like, I want to be there for me, and like I have to do this thing, or I like have to go to bed. We can't like sit up and focus on this and try to untangle it with our minds because we're just going to lead ourselves astray. So instead, let me do the thing that needs to be done for my body, perhaps. And then we can come back and we can have another conversation about this. Our gift is the Seven of Pentacles, and it came out sideways, which was interesting. It was very adamant. It came out like perfectly sideways. And so I kept it that way. And what that signals to me as a gift is that at times we're kind of wavering between our body's needs. Speaking of the body again, we're on the one hand, we're here, we're like committed to something, we have a sense of consistency and motivation to maybe see a task through, or to focus on our work, or focus on a home project, or on our own health in some way. There's something tangible that we're working on, and we feel a sense of motivation and consistency there. And then the fact that it was wavering, right, and it showed up reversed tells me, or it showed up sideways, which signals a little bit of the reversal energy to me, is like, we're also tired. A full moon come down can do a lot to us. We have these peak emotions at the start of the week, and then we're trying to like soothe ourselves and recover and like piece through what came up and the conversations and the emotions. And so we need rest. And I get the sense that this week we're fluctuating between that sense or that feeling of energy and then that need for rest and restoration. And the gift is honoring that. The gift is actually attuning to our physical needs more deeply and practicing getting ahead of exhaustion by going to bed early, or even like getting ahead of thirst and dehydration by hydrating regularly. There's this sense of like proactive care that we're beginning to take, which can be very Cancerian. And that proactive care is really helping us restore our balance after probably a pretty peak and intense full moon that also involves Mars, that involves Uranus and even Neptune, and widely the nodes, which have just entered Pisces and Virgo. And so there's a ton of astrology, like a ton of transits happening this week. And that can feel like a bit of a roller coaster. And so learn to ride the roller coaster by attuning to your physical needs first and above everything else, right? The conversations, the thinking, the intellectualizing, that can wait. And that probably has to wait this week because the body needs care and we need space to feel the feelings. I hope you have a good week.